7 a.m. and you are now invited to listen to the Morning Watch. And today, the Morning Watch is brought to you by the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, achieving prosperity through partnership, economic growth, and sustainable development.
In 2022, 51 projects were completed under the Urban Renewal Program. This includes zinc fence removal, installation of solar lights and street signs, and the upgrade of parks and green spaces. The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation is reviving the urban landscape, renewing communities for a better tomorrow.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, and if you're overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, why aren't we getting the message of reconciliation or mediation instead of retaliation? And in the second watch, what are the considerations when showing leniency to convicted persons? For our social media question, we ask, why do we seem to go straight for violence instead of going for mediation or counseling in resolving conflict? We're asking you to share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program. But before all of that, here's I quote.
Good morning, good morning. Today's I quote says, as a leader, the first person I need to lead is me. The first person that I should try to change is me. And this one is by John C. Maxwell.
Good morning, Joka.
Good morning. How are you?
I am here doing well, my brother. How are you?
I'm doing well. Just getting myself ready for the Sterling Awards coming up on Saturday.
When is that?
On Saturday, October 7 at Swallowfield Chapel.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We're looking forward to that.
Yes.
And of course, the quotation is very relevant today as a leader.
Right.
First person I need to lead is
me.
Is me. The first person that I should try to change
is me.
Is me. Profound.
Definitely. By John C. Maxwell.
Great. The first watch will be back after this break.
Great sardine with the chef and the beginner. Follow the one with pepper, that are the winner. Shop on supermarkets, everybody sell it. You all of them nice. Pass the part, make push it.
Great sardines follow the better flavor. As our family grows, our home internet needs have grown too.
And now, with Flow's fiber-fast internet and smart Wi-Fi coverage, we're always connected in any room at home.
With Yard and Road Plus, get gig speed, fiber-fast internet, smart Wi-Fi, plus unlimited mobile on the go. All for the special offer of only $6,999 plus GCT a month. Fiber-fast internet and smart Wi-Fi coverage inspired by you. Visit a Flow store today. Conditions apply.
Do you have a heart condition? Your care should be in the hands of our experienced cardiovascular team at Partners Interventional Center of Jamaica. We're one of the leading heart centers for angiogram, stenting, pacemakers, EP studies, and ablation therapy. PICJ has the expertise and latest technology to treat all your heart needs. Call 876-995-7425 or email info@pic-jm.com for appointments. PICJ, your partners for life.
Every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Love 101, you're invited to listen to Good Morning Minister, a weekly feature where government ministers will speak about the developments in their various ministries. Listen for the updates and have your questions and concerns ready to share inside Good Morning Minister as the Minister of Information, Robert Nesta Morgan, and a guest minister or agency head discuss the issues and take your questions and suggestions. Get ready to call in during Good Morning Minister, 11 a.m. on Wednesdays, right here on Love 101, the family station.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And so as we now go into the first watch, we also bear in mind what is happening in our society. Family dispute may be behind Top Crawl massacre. Car torched amid St. Elizabeth Love Triangle killing. Student hospitalized after allegedly stepping on schoolmate Clark. Another student is also hospitalized in a similar incident. And so the question is being asked, what's happening? And why are these things happening? Well, to help us address these issues and answer these questions, we have online Mrs. Donna Parchment Brown, Justice and Development Consultant, co-founder of Dispute Resolution Foundation, and the Reverend Christopher Bradber, columnist of the Counselor's Counselor, the Counselor's Coach, and he's a counselor. Okay. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Despite what's going on, it is still a beautiful morning.
It is.
Good morning.
Reverend Bradber, are you with us?
Certainly, I'm here.
Great. All right. Lady and gentlemen, before we go into the whole matter of mediation and reconciliation, what are your opening thoughts on those headlines that were just read? Beginning with you, Mrs. Parchment Brown.
Thank you so much. Too often we are in tears or we're upset as a country over things that have happened. However, I want to say that as gross and as apparently frequent as these events are, they still remain the exception rather than the rule. But it is up to us to make those exceptions really rare. It requires a constant effort for us to stop, to prevent, and to have appropriate responses. I think we're in a context where mental health is on the lips of everyone, and this, of course, will impact how one can respond to what has occurred. But in addition to the question of mental health, there is the question of cultural programming and knowledge of what resources are available and how one can access them and at what stage. Is it before we get into these problems, during, after? And who should be involved? There are some tough questions, I think, for state actors, for churches, and for individuals.
Yeah. Okay, a lot there to chew on. Reverend Bradber, your opening thoughts?
Sure. Well, I think we are under a vice grip as a nation in terms of what is happening across the country. Tension.
I'm sorry, Reverend Bradber, I'm not hearing you as loudly as I think I should.
Can you hear me any better now?
A little better, thank you.
All right. I think we're under kind of vice grip. Things have gotten, there's a lot of tension in communities and a sense of hopelessness. That is, what that's happening on the streets. And the violence is just a manifestation of the tensions in homes, in schools, in workplaces, and a manifestation of a sense of hopelessness. So we have to be very strategic with how we push back against the tension. We have to be strategic with what interventions we use in the homes, in the schools, in the workspaces, and we have to be very deliberate. And we really, it would be great for us to know that all our leadership, whether church or political, are on board with a strategy to alleviate some of the pressure that parents are feeling as they try to raise their children and provide for their children. Husbands are feeling as they try to be good husbands. Wives are feeling as they try to be good wives, and so on. So we have to be very strategic, and we need to be united around one effort in order to address what's happening. We can't leave it as is. This thing is snowballing, and many people are very concerned and becoming even more hopeless. So we have to address. We need a quick strategy and quick intervention.
Yeah. Strategy, intervention, being deliberate as we deal with the mental health issues and other issues. Mrs. Donna Parchment Brown.
Yes.
Well, two words stand out in our topic this morning. The first one is mediation and reconciliation.
Yes.
I'm going to begin with you. Could you address the whole matter of mediation? What is it really, and what does it entail? And then I'll ask Reverend Bradford to deal with reconciliation.
Okay, wonderful. So mediation is a process where a trained and unbiased person intervenes in a dispute to help parties talk about what has occurred and think about ways in which they can resolve the conflict they have. Let us bear in mind that a conflict typically would involve some facts or an issue, it would involve emotions, and it would involve a relationship. Now, people can have access to mediation in Jamaica for their civil disputes or their criminal disputes or just of their own accord. So if you have a criminal case in certain categories in a parish court, you can be referred to the Dispute Resolution Foundation or a trained mediator to help you talk through the conflict. Likewise, the Court of Petty Sessions, which is held by the Justices of the Peace, or civil cases from the Supreme Court. But the cases we're talking about are not typically ones that have reached the court. The ones we're talking about are typically ones that are occurring in the community, where perhaps somebody has not yet picked up or acted upon their perception that there is a problem that could become a conflict, that an intervention is needed. And an intervention can be perhaps by Justice of the Peace, because today many JPs are trained as mediators, because we want to move people away from a situation where when people have a conflict or a problem and they come to us, we become judge, jury, and executioner. Rather, we want to be a facilitator to really help hear what the problem really is, what are all the elements, and what it is that they need, what is in their interest to move in a different direction. So that, that's almost like having an early warning system, looking at the cases you have mentioned. Outside of mental health issues, how do we in a school have an early warning system so that at a point when an individual walks onto the compound with an intention to assault a student, how does that person get onto the compound? What is the security to allow them on or off? And at what point in a conflict does an authority who has been trained or has a responsibility intervene, before you get a mass of people escalating the problem? So mediation skills are important. They are available in the community through different institutions and individuals. But a lot of what we're talking about today are more in the mental health space, as far as we know, than in the conflict space.
Interesting. We are up on a break. We'll be right back. Please hold your thoughts.
Do you have questions about the availability of medication from your drugstore pharmacist? Ask your pharmacist. Contact the NHF to find out more. The time by the NHF is
7:15 and 33 seconds.
Josie, 4 vegan, head 4 party hot in iron. Josie, 4 vegan, take time back to your mouth in a fan. Grab 4 of the nicest party, just vegan, make your day well happy. Beef, chicken, veg, or plant-based, make ears full your mouth with tears. Josie, 4 vegan, head 4 party hot in iron. Josie, 4 vegan. Get 4 juicy patties for just $1,000 now. Promotion ends October 6th. Conditions apply.
Here's why you can't afford to miss the Morning Watch.
I love listening to the Morning Watch because topics are discussed and issues are highlighted that are of major importance, which in turn edify me.
The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
I like listening to the Morning Watch. I find it very informative. I find it very interesting. The topics that are covered are very, very wide.
The Morning Watch, thought-provoking, insightful, current. Listen for the probing questions with attorney at law Stokely Marshall and the in-depth discussion with Reverend Dr. Dylan Toussaint. On Thursdays, the Morning Watch is brought to you by Bashco. Bashco, the store that gives you more. The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The Morning Watch is on the family station Love 101.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&B Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. J&B Bank will help you find a way.
Heroes Weekend comes alive for Jamaica Family Fest. October 14 at Harmony Beach Park, Montego Bay, and October 16 at Hope Gardens, Kingston. Bring the kids for over 30 rides and games. Performances by Kevin Downswell, Elaine, Lubert Levy, and more. Gates open 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Admission free. Jamaica Family Fest is sponsored by Gospel Link Up, Harmony Beach Park, UDC, Jamaica Biscuit Company, Jackson Records, Nissan, Kia, Old MacDonald Farm, Love 101 FM.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this the first watch, we're asking the question, why aren't we getting the message of reconciliation or mediation in all that's taking place in our society? And in so doing, we have online the Reverend Christopher Broadba and Mrs. Donna Parchment Brown. Reverend Broadba,
I'm here.
reconciliation. What is that all about? What does that entail?
Well, reconciliation is about trying to bring two parties back together where they're, fallen out over an issue or there's some divide between the two. One of the challenges that we are having again is the dynamic of motivation, getting aggrieved parties to sit at the same table to sort out their grievances in a non-violent way. And I believe that we somehow we need a campaign of awareness and education to bring the temperature down across the nation and in the communities, and even for marital partners, that we can bring the temperature down when there's a conflict. We need, as I said, we need a strategy. I think a national strategy. To do that. I recall in Barbados, they had a strategy where they would have billboards saying mediation and not litigation and so on. Just trying to remind individuals that you can get help You don't have to spend a lot of money and raise your blood pressure unnecessarily and for a prolonged period. Try to get someone in the middle there to help you and whoever you're falling out with get back together. And I think Jamaica needs a similar approach. We need to have a very creatively designed awareness campaign to let people know that it is smart to get help. It is prudent, it is wise, it saves your money, it saves your time, sorry, and it can save lives. So I think we need a strong investment island-wide to just make people aware of it. So that is, in the philosophical. But in terms of for people like me and, who are in the communities as ministers and the JPs and all those on the ground, I guess we just need to get a little more courageous and begin to walk the streets again and talk the talk and remind people to dial it back and come sit at the table and try to reason things out. But certainly motivation is needed, education is needed, and facilitation is needed. We need individuals that are available and willing to go between and settle things.
Rev, if I may build on, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mrs.
Yes, I'm so aligned with what Rev has said, and in fact, in my humble opinion, this is an opportunity for the Ministries of Health, Education, National Security, and Justice to do joined up programs that they have invested in, targeting the different groups that come particularly within their area of concern. We want to see investment that is constant. I think what happens is that we do a project and we think, okay, but we just spent $15 million on this project, and here we are 2 years later, we're still having the problem. Well, but there's some other programs we spend $1 billion on every year. And certain things need consistent support. There is never a day when, let's put it this way, we're having this conversation this morning. Thousands of people will hear us, but there are millions of people who are not going to hear us. We may put on a training program for a school cohort, and we do that for 3 years. And at the end of that time, we have taken in another 400 students into that school who have not been exposed to any program, because the program is a 3-year program. So I do think that we need to have a different way of looking at these things as something that needs concerted effort, concerted investment, bringing key players to the table, but also that it has to have a long window, a long life, a 20-year program, where what we're saying is, we have done things, we have learned from them. How do we go forward with more as we're seeing that there are gaps or there have been breakdowns? If I may just make one small point on this. So, for example, the UNICEF, USAID supported school intervention programs with PALS, Peace and Love in School, and the Dispute Resolution Foundation, where children are referred from school to a program, and also somebody from the program is in the school able to pick up on what's going on, working with the guidance counselor, we were supposed to have psychologists in all our schools. And our mental health services should be available at the community centers, on a regular enough rotation that people can depend on having access to psychiatrists, psychologists, mediators, RJ practitioners, and so on. Ministry of Justice is trying to do a really big job with restorative justice in the community. How do we increase knowledge and how do we make these things last? I really support Reverend Bradber on that, that whole thing of it must be in people's faces and it must be consistent. And we practitioners have to not just do it in private. We have to be out there advocating for these things and delivering services.
Yes, and I'm sure the thousands who are listening are hearing both of you. But what do we say to these cases that happened recently? I mean, it's over the clocks, person's shoes, and then the response. Was what
we don't really know that it's over the clerks. The clerks may be just the presenting problem. There may be something more profound. Sorry, Red. Please go on.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying. Reportedly, in two separate instances, shoes come into play. How does mediation and reconciliation and all of that address these issues?
Well, I think there is scope for that as part of any school program or any community program, because many conflicts many issues have a presenting and an underlying problem. So for me, my class may represent my whole identity. It may be a big achievement to me that I actually have something like that. And somebody stepping on it means that I have been stepped on, profoundly. Now, there may be, we don't know that is actually the real problem. It may be that that's just the trigger problem, not the real problem. And that's where, we tend to be reactive rather than having a strategy of prevention. So in a school, there should be conversations about things like this, but can overburden teachers take that on? Or is that an additional program that the Ministry of Health, say the Ministry of National Security, or just it should be funding? And the other thing is, Jamaica, we often expect to do anything like this has to be voluntary. And I am not supportive of the view that, all of this should be voluntary, because what it means is that you can't have quality control, you can't control consistency of delivery, and it shows that the state itself is not willing to invest in the problem, in solving the problem.
Yeah. So Reverend Broadba, the way forward, apart from the national strategy that is needed, and we should have all of that in place, what can the average man and woman on the street do to deal with the conflict that we are seeing?
Let me say this. It's hard to prescribe a Band-Aid for a gaping wound. And I think it basically almost feels like you might be asking me to prescribe a Band-Aid for a gaping wound. But individually, we have to realize as Jamaicans that ratcheting up conflict doesn't help. I think it was yesterday I heard somebody advising others that, if we continue to do eye for an eye, then the entire nation, the entire world goes blind. So somehow the individual listening to us needs to be an advocate for peace and for common sense approaches to dialing down things when there's hostility or a grievance. And we need everyone listening to us to be an agent of such change. Yes, we are, pastors and counselors. We are all tasked professionally with such interventions and, being the peacekeepers and motivators for harmony and synergy. But the truth is that we need the common, quote unquote common, pardon my using common, but every man or the common man to be involved with dialing things down. Thank God we have some of the elders, quote unquote, in communities who used to be proponents for violence. Some of them have, grown up and matured and said, look, I'm a community member, I'm an elder now in the community. Let me try to tell these young men to dial things back. And the truth is that's what we need. We need all hands on deck. All hands meaning every Jamaican participating in dialing things back. Being available to your neighbor. We've seen not only these things with the clerks and so on, and it is horrendous. It is horrendous and heartbreaking. But we've also seen how husbands and wives, this issue of murder-suicide, another horrendous and heartbreaking dynamic, just kind of seeming as though it was advancing. And I don't want to say it's advancing, but was advancing in Jamaica. It means that husbands and wives don't know how to solve their difficulties, and how and how to separate amicably, and we have to remind people if you're listening, do the mature thing, do the right thing, and dial things down and get help when you can. And if you are able to be help, be the
As you
help that
mentioned,
someone needs.
we're dialing things down. We're out of time. So I have to dial down this discussion. I want to thank you both. Thank you both for joining us. Interesting, informative. Have a safe day.
Thank you so much. Keep talking about these topics, but also about the great things we're doing, so people can be encouraged and inspired to be part of that.
Great. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
The Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
Bank, anything possible with a little savings in your hand.
The time by Jan Bank is
7:31.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
NIS pensioners, avoid the wait. Get your NIS pension straight to your bank account. It's easy. Simply visit the Ministry of Labour and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, or the nearest NIS office and collect the direct deposit application form. Then complete the form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you.
Passion and Beauty in association with RCF and Monroe College presents Co-Ed High School Conference 2023 at Monroe College on Saturday, October 7, 2023 from 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Featuring Christian Teachers Forum, Fathers Forum, dance, drama, fashion show, and dynamic guest speakers Sean Graham, Dwayne Taylor, Ronaldo Rush, Andrew Antoinette Norman, and gospel concert featuring Passion and Beauty praises Chevelle Stewart, Ariana White, David Sutton, Rayanne Davis. Admission is free. See you there.
Once upon a time, there's a girl named Kay. She loved to dance and play. One day at school, she got very ill, and Mom was left with an unbearable bill. It would be easier if Mom was prepared. With School Companion, 80% of the bill is cleared. Medical care for children is a must for as low as $2,400 per month. Make unbearable medical bills go away. Sign up for Surgical School Companion today.
Last week, we looked at the bride of Christ. This week, we're exploring the bridegroom, aka Christ, Yeshua. Is he your groom? What do you know about him? Does he know you? How did he become the groom? Tuesday, October 3, on The Rock, join host Bishop Harold Steve Blair and guests Keith Spence and Chris Lewis as they discuss the topic, the bridegroom. That's The Rock, Tuesday, October 3 at 10 a.m. here on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now look at newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing in the Observer. Primary school students rushed to hospital after eating ganja-laced sweets. Also, 76 years, 6 of 15 Klansman gangsters sentenced, remaining 9 to no punishment today. In the Gleaner, 11 people are dead after Mexico church roof collapses. Then, Klansman gang trial. Leader Andre Blackman Bryan sentenced to 39 years in prison. In Loop News, psycho report expected before next court date for cop killing wife. And then finally in Loop News, Crawford gets nod for St. Catherine Northwest, Campbell Eastern Westmoreland. People's National Party names more candidates for next election, general election. Those are some of the major stories and news in our newspapers. Coming up next, we read some of the feedback from our social media question. Why do we seem to go straight for violence instead of going for mediation or counseling in resolving conflicts? We're asking you to leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
On the next Campus Connection, we'll be looking at overcoming disabilities in school, part 2. We will continue the discussion about things that need to be in place to improve learning. How can students with a physical disability maintain high grades? Are families and schools properly prepared to deal with the various issues that may arise in this area? Join us also for a special musical creative guest, John Mark Wigan, on Tuesday, October 3 at 5:30 p.m. on the family station, Love 101, celebrating 30 years of music, family, and love.
Every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Love 101, you're invited to listen to Good Morning Minister, a weekly feature where government ministers will speak about the development in their various ministries. Listen for the updates and have your questions and concerns ready to share inside Good Morning Minister as the Minister of Information, Robert Nesta Morgan, and a guest minister or agency head discuss the issues and take your questions and suggestions. Get ready to call in during Good Morning Minister, 11 a.m. on Wednesdays, right here on Love 101, the family station.
Good Morning Minister is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Hey, small people, listen up. Join us weekdays, Monday to Friday, 4 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. for the Small People Show with Auntie Colleen. Yes, every day we have something educational and fun for you to enjoy. Plus, on a fifth Friday, you get a chance to hail up your friends and community, and you could win a prize too. That's the Small People Show, where we aim to build characters and empower our small people for the future. Remember to tell a friend and stay for the fun. It's the Small People Show with Auntie Colleen on the family station, Love 101.
Last week, we looked at the bride of Christ. This week, we're exploring the bridegroom, aka Christ. Yeshua. Is he your groom? What do you know about him? Does he know you? How did he become the groom? Tuesday, October 3, on The Rock, join host Bishop Harold Steve Blair and guests Keith Spence and Chris Lewis as they discuss the topic, the bridegroom. That's The Rock, Tuesday, October 3 at 10 a.m. here on the family station, Love 101.
Back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. We now segue into the second watch. Lawyers asking the court for leniency for their clients is not an unusual or new thing. But with the spotlight on the trial of the 15 convicted members of the Klansman One Don gang, and lawyers asking for leniency, our interests have been piqued. What of leniency and convicted felons? Well, to discuss these matters, we have joining us Mr. Anthony Williams, attorney at law, and Pastor Roderick Robinson, minister of religion, and he is an ex-convict. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. You're very low. I'm not hearing you. Yes, good morning, Mr. Williams. Good morning, Pastor Robinson. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Good morning. How are you doing?
Yes, good to have you both with us. Thanks for joining us. Let's hit the ground running. Mr. Williams, generally speaking, what is the law of the land in regards to leniency, especially for major crimes?
Well, when a person is charged for a criminal offense and they are going to be sentenced, there are two headings that the court takes into consideration, and the court being the judge. One is called aggravating factors, and the other is called mitigating factors. In other words, aggravating means worse. What are the factors that makes the sentence to be worse? And mitigating, what are the factors to make it lessen or reduced? So I will state what the factors are in no particular order in terms of aggravating factors. So the court looks at whether or not the crime was a very serious crime. The nature of the crime. Was it a rape? Was it a murder? And if it was a murder or a rape, it looks at how it was committed. Was the person's house kicked down in the wee hours of the night as opposed to in the morning? Was the person ambushed? That sort of thing. They look at whether or not any offensive weapons were involved. The court takes into consideration as well the participation, the level of participation of that person. So there could be 2 or 3 or 4 persons. So the court looks at the role. Was that person the major player or the minor player? And so if the person is a major player, then they get more sentence. The minor player, then they will get less. The court also looks at whether or not the person had any previous breaches or infractions with the law. In other words, is this a first-time offender, or is this an habitual offender, somebody who has had a previous conviction, and so they just keep doing this thing over and over? All those are factors. The court also takes into consideration the age of the person. Is the person a minor, a teenager, a youngster, that sort of thing, or an old person? Another important aspect of the case is breach of trust. Breach of trust, a very, very important factor. And these are usually like in sexual offenses. So if you have a grandfather or an uncle or a neighbor who is alleged to have committed an offense, and you expect better from that person in terms of the level of confidence that you repose in that person. And so the court says if you breach that trust in relation to the victim, then you could be in some serious trouble in terms of a higher sentence. The court takes into consideration whether or not you have a good report. So probation officers will be asked to go out into the community and interview the community, and they will have an assessment of that person. Sometimes the community will say, well, I was very shocked at hearing that this person committed the offense. Or they would say, no, I'm not shocked. This is a man who is a risk or a liability to the community.
Pick up in right there, Mr. Williams. I'm sure you have more to tell us. Before the break, I wanted to bring in Pastor Robinson. Pastor, what can you tell us in regards to your experience of leniency as an ex-convict?
Well, good morning, listeners. Good morning to you and your guests. All right, for me, first, I'm going to take it from the fact that I was a troubled child in the sense that there wasn't any father and any mentor and so forth in my life. I was caught up with the law. As much as I was a person who wanted to do badness, the fact is I was misguided. Now, when I went to prison, I went to prison on 2 different occasions. I went when I was 17, went back when I was 19, and I went back when I was 20. I think it was 24 or something about there. I went back. I think what the judge did.
Tell you what, Pastor, we are up on a break. We want to hear more about this intriguing story. Hold that thought. We'll be right back.
Okay then.
Grace sardine for the chef and the beginner. Follow the one with pepper, that are the winner. Shop on supermarkets, everybody
Grace
say
sardines follow the better flavor.
The time is 7:45 and 45 seconds.
Hey girl, it's me, or maybe I should say the future you. Just shouting back in time to let you know our retirement's going great, just like you planned it. In fact, we're at the airport on our way to Italy.
Start planning early with a Jane Individual Retirement Scheme. Retirement lasts longer than you think.
Oh, by the way, that boy line is not the one. Just letting you know from now. See you later.
Do your future a favor. Make sure you're in a position to enjoy retirement. Contact Jane Life Insurance today.
Cinerose Chromium Plus is an all-natural herbal product formulated specially for people with type 2 diabetes. An elevated sugar level in the blood will lead to renal failure, damage to the brain, and amputation of your toes or feet, damage to the heart, stroke, ECT. Cinerose Chromium Plus will reduce the level of sugar in the blood, taking it down to normal, and protect you. To get your Cinerose Chromium Plus, call Havco Herbs and Extracts, 876-540-8871.
In 2022, 51 projects were completed under the Urban Renewal Program. This includes zinc fence removal, installation of solar lights and street signs, and the upgrade of parks and green spaces. The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation is reviving the urban landscape, renewing communities for a better tomorrow.
Planning to sit the January CXC CSEC exams privately? Register with Overseas Examinations Commission before the registration deadline, October 13, 2023. Visit our Kingston office or Montego Bay office to complete your application form or send an email to help@overseasexams.org.jm. Follow our social media pages at Overseas Exams for more details. Remember, if you plan to sit the January CXC CSEC exams privately, the registration deadline is October 13, 2023.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this, the second watch, we are asking the question, seeking the answers. What are the considerations when showing leniency to convicted persons? And in so doing, we have online Pastor Roderick Robinson, who has told us already that he was imprisoned on 2 occasions, and he's a minister of religion, and Mr. Anthony Williams, attorney at law. Pastor Robinson?
Yes.
So from where you were a troubled child, 2 times in prison?
Yes. So it was 3 times, as a matter of fact.
3 times?
Right. So when I went to prison, the thing about it is that there was an altercation with me and some young men, and a gun brought in play. I fired some shots. I was shot by the police, and the same day I was apprehended and taken into prison. Now, the moment that happened, and even though I was a person who was involved in badness and gang warfare and those things, the moment that happened, and I believe it's the work of the Lord, I recognized that I did something wrong. I recognized that I deserved to be punished. And so I was open for all of that. Now, when I went to the court, I was very cooperative with my lawyer. I was cooperative with the judge, you understand? And I was cooperative with the police. When it was time for me to be sentenced, they sent out what they call a probation officer, and they went into the community. And they did their background check, and they got mixed information about me. But for the greater part, most of the information that they got was positive. And I guess they used that to determine whether or not I was fit for society. Now, The fact is, I did 5 years in prison. You understand?
Hold on there now. Hold on there, Pastor. You said you're in prison 3 times.
Yes.
And in total, you're saying it amounted to 5 years?
No, man. The last time, the first time, I went for 6 months. The second time, I went for 6 months also. But the third time, I went for 5 years. But if I may say, and I said that when I was incarcerated, that those 5 years were the best 5 years of my entire life because it was right there and then. I do some introspection and I look deeper into my life and realized that my life was going down the wrong path. And I decided that I was going to change. And that's why I accepted the Lord and started to serve the Lord. You understand? The thing about it, I want to make this clear that prison can't change anybody because I've been to prison on 2 separate occasions before the last one. And the first time when I went, I think I wanted to go back.
You wanted to go back to prison?
Yeah, man. And wanted to go back in the sense that I was still doing the same thing. And I was reminding people whenever there's a conflict, I would remind people that, hey, me go prison one time already, me go back again. You understand? So I wanted to go back.
So, Pastor, was leniency given to you, shown to you by the judge? Especially that last time you were there.
I think so because I was charged for police shooting, even though that was false. I didn't shoot after any police, but them pin a charge on me. They have a gun. Some shots were fired, and they pin a charge on me because nobody came forward to say, "Boy, I shot at them." So what they did is they shot me in my foot, and I think probably one of the things that they do in order to create an alibi is that they pin a charge on me, charging me for police shooting. Now, based on my lawyer, I'm supposed to get at least 12 years for that. And a matter of fact, the judge did say that. The judge did say that, listen to me, this is what I'm going to give you, but you deserve more than that. So,
you got 5 years? It's 5 years ago?
Yes, I got 5 years.
Instead of 12?
Instead of 12.
Okay, so much leniency was shown there.
Yes, and I think it was also the work of God because, as I said, my heart was changed. I have a devotional life for the 5 years. Every day, I learned to read the Bible I learned to read from the Bible while I was there in prison. You understand?
Yes,
and so a lot of things were happening in my life.
Yeah, yes, Pastor. I wanted to end on that note soon, but Mr. Williams, still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Great. Of course, Pastor Robinson's case, it's a transformation of his life. Yeah. Are there cases where the court considers a convicted criminal as being beyond rehabilitation? And if so, how is that usually determined?
Well, what the court does is it looks at the social inquiry report to assist it in its proper determination and disposition of the matter. So the probation officers, as Pastor did mention, would go into the community and they would interview a population, a sample of the population. Uh-huh. And then they would have a view as to whether or not this person is a good person, can he be rehabilitated, and so forth. And oftentimes, you have some very good probation reports, and so the court gives that credit. And so the probation report also assists the court greatly in determining whether or not a harsh sentence should be imposed or a life sentence. And the judge can come to the conclusion that based on the habitual infractions of the law by this offender, this person may be difficult to be rehabilitated. I must also mention about there's an act called the Criminal Justice Administration Act, and under that act, the act says if an offender pleads guilty at a very early stage, very early stage of the case, then they will get discounts, and the discount will vary. At the first opportunity, when the case comes up, they may get 50%, and then it goes down the ladder, 35%, 50%. Court takes into consideration the number of times the person, how long they may have spent before the trial. And another important factor too as well, the court looks at what we call victim impact. What is the impact on the victim? Have they got
Victim impact?
Yes, the impact. So we call it the victim. So there's a report from relevant persons, usually from the probation officer as well, and they will give a report on the victims. How have they been impacted? And sometimes they are impacted seriously, very seriously. Some are forgiven, some are not. Some others lost their mind, So that's in the consideration. There was a case recently where a policeman was sentenced to between 18 to 19 years. This is a case where he took a complainant from the police station, allegedly to take her home, and then stopped along the roadway like Palisades, and he raped her. Now, in sentencing the policeman, the court looked at the motto of the Jamaican Constabulary Force, which says, we serve, we protect, we reassure. And so the court says, you have breached your trust, you have not fulfilled and live up to the standard and motto of the force, because there was no protection, there was no reassurance, So we're talking again about the breach of trust. And factors that would also help the court in imposing a life sentence. They look at cooperation of the accused person. As Pastor mentioned, he did cooperate with the police, so they take that into consideration. And also whether or not that person had pleaded guilty or made a confession, or they are remorse. There are some accused persons, they commit the offense. I heard Pastor, he says, boy, he will go back to prison, at one point. So these are the things that the court takes into consideration. Is the person expressing any remorse? Are they desirous of going back to prison? Would they do it over and over again?
More about those persons who just asking Mr. Williams, that they know all of this and they start to just come up with some crocodile tears and all them things.
Well, judges are not fools, Judges are not robots, right? They are not robots, and that's what I want to tell the public. Judges are not robots, and I say this to say that they assess all the factors, they take into consideration the police antecedent report, the social inquiry report. They look at the modus operandi and the propensity of these persons, right? Some people automatically become Christians at the same time. Some judges know that they don't think they apply. Some are genuine, right? So judges are not robots, right? Quote scriptures too. Sometimes the scriptures that they quote are known more than the Bible.
All right. Pastor Robinson, you have the final word. What do you say, sir, in light of your past experiences to the listening audience? What is your word? Pastor, 1 minute.
Okay. What I would say, I don't know. I just think that this generation, something is radically wrong with this generation. And I think one of the things that we might have to look at in this country is to the whole thing about parenting. I think sometimes as parents, we are trying to curb our children after 6 years old. I have 5 boys, and every day I try to guide them. When I hear certain things on the street, I come home and I have meetings with them and share. I think parents need to start to take responsibility also.
Hearing you loud and clear, Pastor. It starts in the home, okay?
It starts in the home. And I want to...
We have to leave it there. Very sorry. Thank you both for joining us. Have a safe and productive day.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much.
Great. Listeners, for information, I'll get copies of this program. Call our production department at 876-968-959-627. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and our guest. I'm Dylan Toussaint, giving a shout out to the pastors and members of the Webster Memorial United Church as I hand you back to Love in the Morning with Jokal Dyer.
The Morning Watch was brought to you today by the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, achieving prosperity through partnership, economic growth, and sustainable development.